Imagine that very early in life, before you had the language to articulate it, before you had the cognitive tools to examine it, you drew a map. Not a map of a place, but a map of existence itself. Who you are, what the world is like, what you can expect from other people, and what you must do to feel safe, valued, and capable within it. Alfred Adler called this map the style of life, and he argued that it is the single most important concept for understanding why a person behaves the way they do. Adler believed that by around age 5 or 6, the basic architecture of this map is already in place. Not fixed forever, Adler was always an optimist about human capacity for change, but established with enough force that it will organize perception and behavior for decades without ever being consciously examined or deliberately chosen. The style of life is not the same as habit, though habits grow from it. It is not personality in the popular sense of the word, though personality expresses it. It is something more fundamental, a set of deep convictions about the self and the world that function as organizing principles. I am the kind of person who must be in control. I am the kind of person who is fundamentally unlovable. The world is a place where effort is rewarded. The world is a place where trust always leads to betrayal. These are not beliefs a person consciously articulates. They are assumptions so deeply embedded that they feel less like beliefs and more like facts. Adler traced the formation of the style of life to the child's attempt to make sense of their earliest experiences within the family. Every child, he argued, is a creative interpreter of their own experience. The same objective circumstances, poverty, illness, a demanding parent, can produce entirely different styles of life depending on how the child constructs their meaning. One child raised in poverty concludes, "The world is scarce and I must fight for everything." Another child raised in the same conditions concludes, "Difficulty is simply the context in which character is built." The external circumstances overlap, the internal maps diverge dramatically. This emphasis on the child's creative interpretation was one of Adler's most original contributions. He refused to see human beings as simply shaped by their environments. The child, he insisted, is always the author of their own style of life, drawing on their circumstances, their family position, their early relationships, but ultimately crafting a unique response to those raw materials. One of Adler's most elegant clinical tools for uncovering the style of life was the analysis of early memories. He would ask patients to recall their earliest memories, not necessarily the most dramatic events, but simply the first things they could remember. Adler believed that what a person chooses to remember from earliest childhood is not random. Memory is selective, and what the mind retains and what it discards reflects the organizing logic of the style of life. A person whose first memory involves being comforted after a fall reveals something about their basic expectations of the world and other people. A person whose first memory involves being left behind reveals something very different. The style of life reveals itself most clearly, Adler noted, in moments of challenge, when routine breaks down and a person is forced to improvise. Under ordinary conditions, almost anyone can function adaptively. It is when life presents it harder questions, failure, loss, conflict, genuine uncertainty, that the style of life shows its hand. The person who believes the world is fundamentally hostile will interpret an ambiguous social interaction as a threat. The person who believes their worth depends entirely on achievement will experience a professional setback as a personal catastrophe. Adler was always careful to emphasize that the style of life, however deeply established, is not a prison. It was constructed by a human being, a young, inexperienced, creative human being working with limited information, and it can be reconstructed by an older, more experienced one working with better information. The therapeutic task, in Adler's view, was not to excavate trauma for its own sake but to help a person recognize the logic of their own style of life, to see clearly the convictions they formed in childhood, to evaluate whether those convictions still serve them, and to begin the difficult but genuinely possible work of revision. Subscribe to Psychology Theories Explained to explore more of the ideas that shaped the modern mind.